going to call to order the January 23rd subcommittee, negotiating subcommittee of the school committee at 4:31 p.m. We could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And just for logistics, the January 23rd, 2023 negotiating subcommittee meeting will be televised and may be viewed live on Comcast Channel 22 and on Verizon Channel 34 or on youtube.com/Tewksbury TV. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to make an audio or video recording of an open session at a public meeting. At this time, I would ask if anybody is recording tonight's meeting to please identify themselves. And seeing nobody, we can now move on and try to give as much time to our conversation as possible. But thank you all for being here today. And again, if anybody needs introductions, we have Mr. Dave Libby, our business manager, Mr. Montori, our town manager, Lori McDermott, our assistant superintendent, Brenda Terrio-Regan, our superintendent, Roseanne DePietro, our legal counsel. I'm Bridget Garabedian and Mr. Russo. So I hand the meeting over from our end at this time to Mrs. DePietro.
Hello. Hi. How's everybody doing? Good. How's it going? Ted, do you mind if we go first?
Sure.
We, the school committee have, we're starting with teachers, right?
Yes.
I think we agreed to that. So we have some proposals that we'd like to present to you. Before we distribute the document, I just want to share some thoughts, if you don't mind. There's three categories that our proposals fit into. Article 8, which is huge. There's a bunch of proposed changes to Article 8. Salary, we're going to make a salary proposal to you in conjunction with and as a package with Article 8 changes. And we have some Appendix B proposals that are in addition to what the joint Appendix B committee slavishly worked on. And I've heard from Mrs. Garabedian, not to put words in her mouth, that you guys did so much work. I don't know who was on that subcommittee, but you did a lot. Much appreciated. It's going to help us be very efficient here tonight. So the two first topics I mentioned, Article 8 and salary, you'll see that we're incorporating and responding to the priority that you expressed at the last meeting about needing more preparation time and collaboration time. So we've proposed terms that will address your priority, but in a way that doesn't cut into student instructional time. And I also want to acknowledge, I think you'll all agree, that teachers in Tewksbury are not only expected to, but do spend time outside of the parameters of contract day that's specified in the contract, preparing, collaborating, helping students, and communicating with parents. I think you all do that outside of whatever 3 o'clock when the day ends per the contract. So we have proposed that the teacher workday be 8 hours. This is an increase beyond the current contractual teacher workday of 7 hours, acknowledged. The additional 1 hour per day that we are proposing would be every day that's not a half early release day. The early release day is same like the workday, 7 hours. But of those days that are full student days, the time would be allocated as follows. An additional hour of PLC time per week, beyond the hour that's already in the contract. Parent communications, including parent-teacher conferences. So parent-teacher conference time is folded in. It's not a separate commitment outside a contract day. It's within contract day. Extra help for kids. Not the extra 15 minutes 4 days a week. It's included. It's folded in. You're not doing 8 hours plus 15 extra minutes a day. Equitable rotation of duty time. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Faculty meetings would be folded in instead of staying extra for faculty plus 8 hours. It's within. And we propose that the contracts say not to exceed 10 hours total per year, which is, it's probably a little different, but it's about 1 hour a month, right? Now, let's discuss what the school committee is proposing to do with the salary schedule in exchange for your agreement, we hope, to specify a contractual 8-hour workday. Your current contract, as you may recall, for the years 2021 through '24 indicates across-the-board salary increase of 2.25% each year, right? 2.25, 2.25, 2.25. What the school committee is proposing for the upcoming 3 years is, in year 1, Appendix A salaries, steps 1 through 4 would see a 3.5% increase. Steps 5 through 10 would see a 3% increase. We'll talk about that, the data that we looked at to explain where we came up with that. In years 2 and 3, across-the-board increases each year of 3%, 3%. So after that brief overview, let's look at our proposal. There's a few other changes to Article 8, not only to implement what I just laid out for you, but also to make sure that the whole day hangs together. You know, everything kind of stems from when do the students get here, when do the students leave, who's watching the kids. So there's some changes in Article 8 that address those things. It's a lot. So we're going to have to take a bit of time to digest this. And then we can go on to Appendix B.
Can I ask a question while those are-
Absolutely.
What did you say about the PLC? Did you say that was folded in also, or did you say an additional hour?
The PLC hour that's already in the contract is not being touched. It's not, that time within what now is the 7-hour day is going to stay the same. It's an extra hour of PLC per week, so there's 2 hours altogether per week. One of those hours will be grabbed from that, whatever extra hour, you know, the extra 1 hour per day on whatever day makes sense within the contract.
And then the other part of it would stay just as it is outside of contract time?
The other part stays where it is, meaning it's fitting into the current 7 hours that you have, however you do it now. The timings, the actual schedules
Some
might
of
have
it's
to move.
outside.
Some of it is outside.
Yeah, that's correct. But what we're saying is, the extra hour per day that we're proposing that you agree to, one of those hours in a given week is going to be dedicated to PLC.
Inside.
But it's not going to
Touch how
take
the
away
other
from the
hour
other
is.
PLs.
Okay.
Which will
I
still
should
be
also
part
tell you,
outside.
if you're doing the math with me, you'll see that there's a bunch of extra time left over after we take all these. That's your time. Preparation, collaboration, whatever you want to do with it, really, with your colleagues. Do I have a copy?
One more copy for the, I have it.
Okay, that's okay.
If you have any extras, we'll take them.
Oh, thanks. And we presume that when you caucus, you're going to be getting a calculator out and saying, okay, how does this all add up? How does this hang together? Okay, so we'll just walk through this, okay? And you shout out your questions as they come up, or whatever you want to say, just shout it out. And folks on the school committee side, obviously, if you want to add in any justification and rationale, please feel free. So, high school, you'll see, it's kind of self-explanatory. We may have adjusted student entry and dismissal times, and I think that was in recognition of the fact that each school, because of student transportation, they all sort of have to work together, right? So we had to move things around a little bit. And also recognize that kids have after-school commitments too, so we had to kind of throw that into the mix. So this is what we came up with. And in general, student length of day stays the same, is that right for every grade?
Yep.
And then teacher workday, again, everybody's going from 7 to 8 hours, but none of it, the added hour is instructional time. Okay? And then when you see, you'll see on the second page in red, the allocation of the extra hour per day, how that's going to be allocated throughout the day, week, year. Okay. So the parent-teacher conferences, as I understand it, is there currently evening ones?
2-hour evenings.
Those aren't going to happen anymore, unless you want to. It's voluntary. Instead, those would take place during that after student day, but within teacher workday. So if students leave and you have another hour, you can, across that 1 hour extra per day, 5 hours extra per week. You decide how much of it you need to allocate to parent time. But we are proposing that at least 2 parent-teacher conferences per year per kid happen, as they are now, but you have the flexibility to schedule them. And if the parent wants it virtual, have it virtual. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sorry. I've
It makes sense. I don't know if you agree with it.
No, it makes sense. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does allow flexibility throughout the year of when you want those to happen.
Excellent, thank you.
Let's see, what else? All right, and if you skip down to the red line under B, if you feel, obviously, it's necessary for the completion of whatever your responsibilities and professional standards, obviously, you're going to probably work more than 8 hours a day, which I'm sure many, if not most of you do anyway. So that's, the theme of that is still the same. So the faculty meetings under D was stricken because that's now going to be folded into that, included in that time after school, but before the end of your workday. In other words, we're not making you go to more faculty meetings. Well, we kind of are, because it's 10 hours per year max instead of 7.5. And then the evening parent-teacher conference language is stricken because, again, it's folded into that time that we're proposing. The PLCs, I know you had some proposals, but we propose that the PLC schedule be set by the principal with collaboration, obviously, from the stakeholders. As I said, the schedule has to hang together considering many moving parts. The group's schedule, the student schedule, specials, everything. So I think the building principal who has the everybody picture has to be the one in charge of how the pieces fit. The PLC facilitator, I think we're going to have a lot of conversation. I'm looking at the second paragraph on page 3 about how we're going to group together PLCs and how many facilitators overall there are going to be. And I think the rest of this is striking outdated language. Yeah. Okay, moving on to other changes in Article 8, page 4. We have proposed that, if this makes
Sorry,
sense to you.
before Zan, sorry. Could we
Sure,
just
sure.
give time, could we just add, does anyone have any questions regarding the
It's a
PLC
lot.
aspect first? Just because, it
It's a
might
lot.
be a little overwhelming at first.
It's a lot.
So
We can also-
review, huh?
If they don't have them now. we
Yeah, if you
can
don't have
also-
them now, we can always ask them later, but does
Yeah.
anyone have any initial questions at all? Okay, just wanted to make sure. We didn't want to like.
Yeah, it's kind of, this whole article has to be considered as a whole, right? So I was trying to make it not overwhelming, but not take anything too much out of context either, but whatever, I don't know. Okay, moving down on page 4, we propose that if Good Friday falls on the Friday before April vacation, the half-day before April vacation is going to be on the Thursday before Good Friday. Does that make sense?
So Holy Thursday would be a half-day?
Yeah,
Yes, if you're off on Good Friday because it's the day before April vacation, I mean, half-day on,
instead of the June thing that we
yes.
just went through.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, but
all
I
right.
do have a question about that. So, unless if we reach a time of agreement tonight, or by the, or by the end of the year, will the next memorandum that we just agreed to just take effect next year, and then it'll go from every year after the 24-25 year? Or would we just scrap the memorandum of agreement?
What's the- I don't know what that
We
is.
have, well, working within the contract as it is now, we collaborated with the leaders of the TTA because right now, Good Friday does fall on the Friday. So we had to reschedule the half-day before April vacation, and it was falling after the Friday after graduation. So we, in collaboration with the high school principal and our parents of high schoolers, agreed that we would have that on the Friday of graduation. I think, I guess is it premature to make that decision
Yeah, I was just
now?
wondering that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we would collaborate again, what makes best sense, depending on where we are in the time frame for everybody.
Thank you.
Moving parts. Exhibit A, there's a lot of moving parts. Okay. The new paragraph towards the bottom of page 4, I think it just reflects what's going on, which is school counselors do work some summer days. And we just want to be a little bit specific about how those days are spent, for students. So we did list the including but not limited to tasks that they typically do over the summer. Okay? I think the idea on these changes is to bring the preschool schedule more in line with kindergarten.
The elementary, they're doing in Heathbrook school schedule, K through
Yeah.
1.
So you'll see the preschool, we've tweaked, so to speak, in this proposed language to make it more in alignment and help sort of coordinate better with duty time, arrival, dismissal time for kids. And then if you keep going down on section 5, we just wanted to be clear that the prep time that folks already have is not being moved into the after-school time that I just talked about. It's staying within the workday, within the student day typically. You're still getting your prep. But if there's, for the times unallocated in the extra hour after school, if they're unallocated, that's additional prep if you want to spend it as prep. It can be additional common planning if you want to spend it as common planning. Okay. Moving on to page 6. I think we might have had this conversation or started it last time. The changes on the top of page 6 are really part of our overall sort of need, if you will, to just make sure that students are supervised on the bus, off the bus, getting their breakfast. When students need supervision, they're getting it. And I think we did stake our arguments very clearly last time about why we think it's very valuable to have teaching staff supervising kids on these duty times. And I think we'll have the prior conversation speak for itself. I think we made our case. I don't know if the administration wants to chime in on this one. Okay, moving along. Moving on to page 7, the stricken language about parent-teacher conferences, I just mentioned why. Upper elementary, section 6, that's obsolete language, struck that. We also struck the reference to librarians. If there ever comes a time when librarians, the position comes back, we may negotiate it back into the contract, but it no longer exists. Page 8. This has to do with the upper elementary. I think I'm going to have to defer to the superintendent to explain the rationale behind striking that old K.
K and L on section 7, correct?
K and L,
Okay, so
yeah.
we're in the right spot.
Can we come back to that after we
Yeah.
caucus with the building principal?
Yeah. And the same thing on the following, on the middle school schedule. I'm going to have to check in with folks to see there's a alignment of classwork that I think has to do with that. Again, just to make sure all the pieces fit, and make sure students' needs are taken care of, and make sure that the schedule is nimble enough to kind of deal with that, because not every day is cookie cutter of every other day, as I'm sure you know. Okay, we did tuck in breakfast duty as a potential duty area because I think we talked about last time, some kids are not, they don't have anybody to bring them to breakfast off the bus or out of transportation in the morning, and they're missing breakfast sometimes, or they're at risk of doing that. We can't have that. And we propose that the principal will issue a schedule for those faculty and PLC meetings and duties so that you have a sense, like, how am I going to plan my day, week, year? But obviously, it's subject to change, but they'll say this is the current proposed schedule for when faculty meeting is going to happen, when after student work, school day PLCs are going to happen, and when duties are going to happen. But obviously, there'll have to be some ability to make some changes on that. High school schedule. So you'll see when we later discuss appendices and department chairs and lead teachers and all those academic positions, we, as part of our sort of modification of all that, how that works, we're proposing that the department chairperson and anybody else in the Appendix B academic positions work their full teaching load. So these changes that you see on page 10 are part of that proposed modification. I'll get to that in a minute. And we, on page 11, because there's going to be one evening per year, not 3 mandatory attendance, we made the change there to just say open house, not teacher and parents. It's just open house. That's still going to be a requirement at each building, but not the 2 evening parent conferences. And we also proposed to strike B about chaperoning, because we do have some discussion about that upcoming, about how chaperoning can be a stipended position, but it has to go through a process. We'll get to that when we talk about Appendix B in a moment. So we talked about the salary proposal that we're making in recognition of the ask that we presented to you tonight. And now, if you want to go to Appendix B, we can do that, or if you want to pause for a sec.
I think maybe what we'll do is caucus to come up with the list of questions, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean, kind of go
Yeah.
through it together, so let's just go right.
All right, we can do that, all right.
Oh, wait, Ted does have a question.
Oh,
I got to ask, morale currently is low in the buildings. I mean, not just here in Tewksbury, but for educators generally. And you may be aware about half the people are entering education programs now as compared to not that long ago. There's a lot of reasons for that. When you crafted this proposal with a salary that doesn't even keep up with the settlement trend and asks them to have a workday that's longer than any of the other area schools, did you take the effect that this would have on morale, just like giving this to the folks here? And I direct this to whoever, because obviously, like all your proposals, we'll entertain it, we'll discuss it. I can't, make a response to that. But did you give a thought to the effect that making a proposal of a salary that's behind the settlement trend and asks for a longer workday, did you give consideration to the effect that that would have on morale?
this is a proposal. This is an initial proposal.
Yeah, no, I'm aware, but
Yep.
and I don't know who crafted this, and my question is, was thought given to the effect that this was going to have on morale? Because I can promise you, folks are going to be bummed that this is what their employer is asking of them, and it's going to make some people question whether they really want to stay in Tewksbury.
Okay, well, I'll take a first crack at it, and again, I'm not an educator, but I've been through negotiations, as you know, many times. Yes, of course. I think in the history of our school district negotiations, any district that I've represented, I don't think we've ever made an initial salary proposal. We've always responded to a proposal coming our way. So that's a recognition right there that it is an ask. And like I said, it's an initial proposal, and it exceeds the 3-year package that the teachers currently have, and it does keep ahead of inflation. If you look at, let's look at the past 10 years, for example, of CPI stacked up against TPS salary percent increases. If you factor this in and you factor in what Forbes magazine is projecting for the next 2 years, we're ahead. Over a 10-year trend, we're ahead. You brought it up?
The settlement trend, I don't want to have it.
What is the settlement trend you're speaking of?
Well, you saw North Andover just settled for over 4% per year. Andover settled for over 4% per year. Drake has settled for like 16 or 17%. In general, settlements are generally coming in 3-4% per year.
Okay.
I don't want to have a debate about that. My question was really simple, though.
So you said they're coming in at 3 or 4% per year.
Right.
We're in the ballpark.
Well, it's slightly behind the settlement trend, but asking for more time,
Right.
right?
Right.
So my question was really simple. Did you give consideration to the effect that making this proposal would have a morale? Because I negotiate in a lot of places, and this is more typical. This is like the type of proposal that employers sometimes, they used to be kind of beating up the union at the beginning of negotiations, you know.
Well, I'm sorry you see that way.
But I don't see that anymore, because I think employers generally have started to realize that they don't want to negotiate that way, kind of, beating down the other side, especially because morale
Can I-
across the state has been so low.
Okay.
So did you, and I'd appreciate it if I could hear from the people who
Sure.
crafted this, was consideration given to the effect that this would have on morale, asking people with this type of really substandard salary increase while at the same time looking for a longer workday?
I'll take it.
Mr.
I'll take it,
Russo?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the question, Ted. So my feeling on this whole thing is that people are working longer than 7-hour work days today. There's no question about that. I think that in most professions, the thought and idea of a 7-hour workday is, you don't see those typically today in most professions. In fact, any profession that I can think of anyway. I do think that morale is important. Morale builds culture. I know each of our schools in the district have in some way their own culture. And that's important. And I do think, are we ever going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time? Absolutely not. And I don't think that any proposal that we would ask for or that you guys would ask for would potentially seek to do that or remedy that. I do feel that this is a good step in the right direction. I think, as Roseanne pointed out, I think it's our initial proposal, and we're open to hear your thoughts about what you think could change or what you think could potentially, if you do feel that morale is low, what you think could potentially bring that back up. I'm certainly open to those suggestions.
Yeah, and we were struggling within the 7-hour day, trying to set aside more time for prep and more time for common planning with the instructional minutes there are, taking away from the instructional minutes that exist. We just couldn't do it, So we were trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think one last thing too that I would add in that is that we are constantly hearing about social, emotional well-being of children, that keeping them in school, to me, is going to help that well-being. It's going to help that well-being because we have we have wonderful educators in this district, wonderful educators in this district. So by taking kids out of school more and reducing that time on learning, I don't know how that helps their social, emotional well-being, what we keep hearing constantly about in 2024. I don't.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Have you calculated the percentage of the increase of the work year? Like, what percentage increase would that be? Do you have that?
Yeah. So, do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's you can.
So
calculate.
today, contractually speaking, we spend 12, if you take 7 times, I think I did this by 181.5 because it's 179 full days and 2.5 or 5 half days, which is the equivalent of 2.5, right? Did I do that right?
A little different, actually. That 7-hour piece, I think.
171.
It's 171.
171, yes.
171
So it's a
full
total of
school days.
181.5 days equivalent, which is 1,270 hours. There's 4 hours for teacher conferences, parent-teacher conferences, twice a year, so two times 2 hours. There's 7.5 hours for faculty meetings today that are outside of the contractual time. Then there's an average of 1 hour a week for PLC time, which is, again, outside the contractual time. So that's an extra 40 hours, give or take, roughly 40 weeks of school year.
Okay.
Right? Did I say anything wrong there?
Mix of both.
It's a mix of both.
It's a mix of
yes,
both.
yeah.
So, but in total, contractually, because again, I know we're all spending
Extra help is an hour a
more.
week, too.
I'm sorry?
Teacher extra help is an hour a week.
Teacher extra help is an hour a week. So in total, that's 1,361 hours in total, contractually. We know that people are working way more than that. We know that. We're trying to give credit for that here, is how I'm looking at it. So when I just take an 8-hour day now, minus an 8-hour day times 181.5 school days, it's 1,452 minus the 4 professional development days, which would be 7-hour workday, so that's minus 4 hours right there. And then the 4 half days that we have PD today, that's also a 7-hour workday for the educator. that's minus another 4 hours. So in total, that's 1444, up from 1361.5, which again, we know that people are doing. So I don't know if, Peter, if that
Yeah, I'm
interests
just wondering what the percentage that is?
I can do that math. Hold on 1 second, Peter. I got 6%.
Right. So 6% longer work year with a 3% longer raise as your initial offer. Which I think speaks to Mr. Lewis's point about morale. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I just want to comment, and I'll give it to Emily, who also wants to comment. We have three of us who would like to speak. I understand your point with the SEL, and, you know, we are in a mental health crisis, right? No doubt about it. Which is why I do feel a lot of our proposals are trying to tackle that, but we'll get into that later. I will say, you know, kind of responding to the idea of having kids in school less, the one thing about it is, and I'm a high school teacher, I honestly say, while there are some weeks when even with my prep, I'm still swamped, grading, prepping and such, my elementary counterparts, and as seen as our last proposal last time, they're drowning some days, and it's very hard to address the social emotional needs of our students when our elementary educators are suffering. So I know we haven't gotten an official response from you all yet. Yeah. I'm taking it as a harbinger of what the response will be, but I want you to consider, you know, if students are in the presence of burnt out, swamped, emotionally unwell educators, that's going to rub off on the students too. So, and maybe you find that's why the countering process is so beautiful. Maybe you find the current model a little excessive. We'd entertain any counter from you, but I would just like to say we hope for not an outright rejection with that. But Emily did want to also make a comment.
On those same lines, I understand, Rich, your point about the social emotional being possibly helped being within the school day and having the kids there. I think you were getting at the amount of half days we had requested. Am I in the right ballpark here?
That is more in direct correlation
Okay.
to that, yeah.
So my only thing to just kind of comment on that is the rigor in our rooms, even at K and 1, is something unreal like it was not in the past.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's actually causing them more of their stress, and having that break to be a kid and go be able to play or get a McDonald's treat for lunch with, you know, babysitter, auntie, uncle, whoever, right? Sometimes that is actually more of the release they need than holding them to those super high classroom standards.
Do we have any other questions before we go to Appendix B from anyone or comments from our team?
Can I just clarify? Can I just get,
Yes.
Connor, you mentioned, and I apologize if I misheard you, but
Yeah.
you said you were referring to a counter offer.
So, like, you know, we have the initial proposals, and then we're going to obviously.
Yeah.
each other. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't something specific you were countering.
No, I'm saying, like,
Okay.
I'm just saying we're entertaining.
General.
I have a clarification.
Okay.
So I know the proposal we made was for K to 4 extra prep time because we were the ones with the big deficit. We've been the ones with the big deficit for many, many years. I guess my question to the proposal is, everybody, K to 12 is getting this extra, or we're being asked to do the extra hour. Where are we getting that deficit cut in elementary? Because to me, it's just adding prep time to everybody, but everybody already has more than us. We're looking for it to be a little bit more equitable because of our workload. Our proposal was K to 4. That's just why I'm wondering if that was considered at all.
The only thing I can speak to is that I think this is an open conversation. You know, I think, you know, we definitely heard a lot of what you said with your proposals. This is one way of finding a solution, you know, just like you also had a way of finding a solution. I think this is a conversation that is open. Right, this is just kind of putting it out there to say, this could solve some of these problems, what you had could solve some of these problems. We need to come back to the table again here and see where do some of these pieces fit automatically. Like, that's a no-brainer. And then we've got some other stuff that are outliers, and that, to me, is a little bit of an outlier that needs to be looked at. Maybe, administration certainly, I look to these guys as the experts, I look to you guys as the experts. We're not educators, so, Rich and I definitely have to find a way to put the pieces together a little bit. So I hope everybody takes, the intent of the proposals in that manner. Yeah.
I know one thing that you guys have been highlighting is students being supervised during the day and like after school and that like kind of in between time. As a high school coach, you're now asking me and other people to be here for an extra hour while all of those kids do what and are watched by who? So have you guys considered that in what's going to happen in that time?
Yes, it has been considered.
I can say yes, and the athletic director is obviously the resource present for that. At this time in the Merrimack Valley, we're the earliest that get out of school. No game starts before 4 o'clock. So at this sample schedule shown at the high school, it would not impact athletics. And
well, not in
yes,
terms of-
taking into consideration who's with the students, absolutely, that would be a managerial piece.
So who would be doing that?
We have monitors right now who are watching students before they leave for practices and games as well.
And
So-
part of that-
So the current supervisors would be doing that duty.
And some of that time might be spent providing
Extra
extra help or conferring with the parent. But, there's time in there that if the student needs to go get extra help, they can do it before they head off to their extracurricular activity.
I just echo the same concern and question with students in extracurricular clubs, like theater or any kind of club, really. So, but it sounds like that's going to be the same answer, right? Like they'd be.
I would think
under the-
so, yeah.
Okay.
Again,
They'd wait
I think
till
as Bridget said, this is a conversation where we understand that if we've handled a logistic issue that you find not to be like workable, I would ask you to let us know. Maybe we can figure something else out. Yeah, I'm just thinking obviously the morale piece is always considered. And, yeah, the ask that we have here is, again, it's a struggle to figure out, okay, you need more time together. We, as you know, are kind of resistant to reducing instructional time. You work more than 7 hours anyway, everybody knows that. You probably work more than 8 hours a day. So it was sort of I don't know, I know you don't see it this way, Ted, but claim credit for the work that you do. Put it in the contract, and, we'll see where we go. But I see that you don't see it that way.
Well, no, the way I see it means nothing here. It's the way that they're going to see it.
Okay, well, I would,
And I can assure you,
I guess maybe if they do, they do.
They're going to see that they're being asked to work a longer contract day
I understand.
than anybody else in the area, while effectively taking a per-hour cut is your proposal.
Well, again, I thought it was more like you should claim credit for all the work that you do outside of the contract hours that you currently have, work in some time that you may have, not directed by admin, but again, if you all interpret that proposal with a different intent than what we actually did intend, I just hope you don't do that.
Can I say one thing? I do think that as Rich just did the math, and
Yeah.
I am not the math person, so I will take Rich's math. But Rich has calculated a 6% increase in just the day, but we've got 3% per year, so we're only at best odds with the hours at half.
Like I said, it's a proposal,
Correct.
so I hope you consider it and, see what you think about it.
Can I just ask one detailed question? At a proposed Center Elementary 8 to 4 day, what time would students be walking into my classroom?
We need to
So currently, the 8:45 start time for students, they walk in at 8:30. I'm just curious when they would walk in.
The student day is 8:20 to 2:40.
So would they walk in at 8:20 or would they walk in earlier, if you know?
I would have to confer with the building principal
Okay.
as to what that would look like before and after, but it's, as you see, the 15-minute before-after student is part of built into the teacher day.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we do the appendix? Josh, go ahead.
So I was just doing the math, and I just want to make sure that this is correct, because I, too, am not a math individual. It seems like after everything is said and done, that teachers would, in this additional hour per day, receive 1 hour of prep spread amongst that week. Is that correct, based on this breakdown?
I don't have that at my fingertips,
Yeah,
but
I don't,
So just to kind of walk you through, so right, like 2 hours of PLC, right? And then,
well, there's
I
1
think-
hour extra of PLC happening.
but it would still
within
be
that
kind
hour.
of happening within that time, right? I'm just kind of
Otherwise,
talking.
one day would have to be like an hour and a half, like it would be
so
even longer.
if you think about it, the student day is, I think, 6.5 hours.
6 hours, 20 minutes.
6:20 at each school, right? So let's just, for round numbers here, just an hour and a half extra outside of when the students are in the building. So that's an hour and a half times 5 days a week, roughly 7.5 hours a week, give or take. Yes, I think there's 30 minutes, 15 on either end for
Not every day.
equitable duties, I think
Right.
is how it's worded. So that's 2.5 hours a week, right? 30 minutes a day times 5 days a week.
No, it wouldn't be every day.
Okay.
They
But I think
rotate.
we could put that, a
Okay.
grid like that together to see what that looks like.
Okay, I guess my
Total minute.
concern here is that, you know, the elementary school teachers, as was stated, have this major deficit. And if it does turn out to be an hour for the week, it's about 15 minutes per day. And what we were looking for far exceeds that 15 minutes, because in order to have these classrooms that have the best social and emotional well-being, that have the best rigor, that have the best lessons and units, we need that more prep time, and that 15 minutes a day, give or take, I don't think it cuts it. Like, I don't think it does what, I think, Roseanne, you mentioned that one of the parts was how do we get more prep without that instructional time? But 15 minutes a day simply doesn't really help us all that much.
Understood.
We have one more question, sorry.
This is just, I'm just curious. Does it have to do with buses? Why now North Street and, sorry, I just looked at North Street, Dewey and Heathbrook are lined up with Ryan as opposed to the center, who's now at a different time?
Confer on that, or is that right, Dave?
I think
bus
the center and the Ryan are
So you're
lined up.
talking about the teacher,
Campus.
You're
talking about the teacher time.
Yes, I was looking at teachers, you are correct.
So the teacher time aligns with the Ryan and the.
The Ryan still lines up with,
Student times are the same at both schools.
But this is 7:45 to 3:45. This is 7:45 to 3:45. Center does not say that. That's what I was confused about.
Okay.
Okay. Any other final questions regarding that, and then before they go to their Appendix B proposal? Okay.
All right. So, the first part is, we just want to be clear that Appendix B duties are extra compensation, so it's beyond contractual teacher hours that they're being performed. I just want to make sure that's an understanding. We also want to rename certain positions. They're more accurate for the changing, evolving times that we live in. So newspaper advisor is now media advisor for student news. Literary magazine is media advisor for student creative arts. And detention supervisor is restorative justice coordinator. Okay? I understand that there was some discussion about having chaperones be requested, approved, and then we'll figure out a stipend to pay chaperones. So we'll figure that out, hopefully, as we discuss Appendix B further along the lines. But we just wanted to signal to you that we want to have that discussion, and we're amenable to inserting something in the contract, as long as there's a process in there, like the advisor to whatever activity is that needs a chaperone or two, asks the principal deliberates and approves, hopefully approves, and then we'll figure out the compensation amount and put it in the appendix. The academic stipends, we wanted to add, again, a sentence that reflects the party's, I hope, common understanding that academic positions are leadership roles, teacher leaders, and these people that fill these positions are therefore expected to perform duties outside of the teacher work year. I know there's many interviews that happen over the summer, for example, for departments, and the department, now what we're going to be calling them as department leaders, would take part in those interviews. And I do believe that's happening now anyway, so we just wanted to make sure it's understood by contract language. We also want to consolidate department heads, lead teachers, which I understand are high school, call them all department leaders, have them all receive the stipend of $75.56, and all have a full teacher load. Right now, well, I know that the parties may have a difference of opinion on what the lead teacher position encompasses, but the school committee's position is that lead teachers are not department heads, but there's a little bit of a disparity in how they're compensated, so we just wanted to have them all paid the higher amount, but they all teach a full load. And we also propose to remove the mentee stipend. That is something that our research tells us does not exist in any other contract in our comparable communities. And if we are doing an adjustment in steps 1 through 4, and typically new teachers are in that ballpark, that what they would have otherwise received as a mentee will be represented in the salary schedule. And case managers. The district is proposing that as of the first contract year, we will have 4.5 of them, and then as of September of '25, they will be removed. The district is contemplating a reorganization of sort of administrative and what I will say is semi or quasi-administrative case manager roles, which will, I don't know if we're in the process of how far we are in the process, but it might, or it is going to end up being more administrative, like more evaluative of staff. So I think the philosophy behind that is people who evaluate teaching staff shouldn't be members of the teaching staff. So we're proposing to just take that out. And that's it. And also, I should have added another bullet. We are also prepared to add to Appendix B whatever the joint Appendix B committee agreed to. I think there's a set of recommendations, there are like 7 or 8 of them, that the process for setting up a club, tiering them, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, and then having like a running list of active clubs. The members of this team are endorsing whatever the work of the joint committee is, and we'll accept it.
Excellent, okay.
But there are things that you couldn't get to or couldn't agree to, and we have to negotiate those, obviously.
Excellent. I have a question. Student news, student creative arts. Are these, I think I know what the student news is, like I think I get that, but media advisor for student news, what buildings are these in? Just,
I can quickly answer that. Those are WIN-related Appendix B roles.
Okay, thank you.
I think Mr. Malloy had his hand up.
Yep. Are there any proposals to increase Appendix B salaries?
Our initial proposal does not speak to that.
So so your initial proposal is a 0 for increased salaries?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's a 0. We don't have a proposal on that.
So that's, well, yeah, that's a 0. Okay. You're not proposing 0. I'm not saying you're proposing.
There you go. We're not proposing 0. That's a good way to put it.
Any other questions with Appendix B?
I have one. I don't know if you can answer this or not. You're taking the case manager stipend off of Appendix B, correct?
As of the second year of the contract.
So are case managers being taken off of the teacher contract?
Well, the individuals who occupy those positions would be able to, access other benefits of the contract to get reassigned. Or if they wanted to apply for the role that the district envisions, that will kind of take its place, they could apply for that. So the case manager position, yes, in summary, yes, it wouldn't be in the collective bargaining unit anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
And it's not just because we want to reduce the size of the bargaining unit, it's, again, I'm sorry to interrupt you, it's in line with the philosophy of, if you have someone who's evaluating, they really probably shouldn't be members of the same unit.
That's why I was asking
Yeah.
if they'd be
Right.
taken off the contract entirely.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a part of a broader vision of what that role would encompass. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it says that you're adding a stipend for chaperoning student activities. Is that over and above an advisor that's running that activity? So
Exactly.
hypothetically, I'll use myself as an example. If I ran a dance for the student council, I wouldn't get paid, but if I had to have other advisors or other chaperones there, they would get paid.
I don't think that was the spirit of that. I think it was when the advisor, for example, senior advisors, here's how this was discussed, need additional chaperones who are not paid advisors. They should go to the principal and seek out additional staff members if they need it, and then those people should not be doing it for free. How could we work out a system for that?
Okay, but the said advisor who does whatever, they get their set amount for no matter what amount of activities, overnights, all that stuff.
What she's asking.
I think I understand.
Okay.
I think the advisor's already paid for the position. That wasn't the spirit of thinking this through, but it's, again, it's a proposal, and not every single stipended position was put into play here. It was really thought about. I don't want to misspeak, but particularly, the senior week and all of those types of things that require additional staff people to be, asked.
Right, so the senior class advisors
It's
would
not
then
the
do
only
it.
one, but that was the spirit of it.
Right, so like for senior week, those senior class advisors would do it, and then if I, say, volunteered for prom, I potentially would get paid because I'm not the senior class advisor, along with any other chaperone.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions with Appendix B? Okay, so my question for you is this. Technically, the teacher session ends in 35 minutes, right? We do want to have at least some time to talk and ask questions. However, there's a few routes we could go about this. We have our proposals, our final ones. We could either slightly extend the teacher time to let both sides caucus and ask final questions before we then end it and respond next meeting to whatever we'd like to.
Yeah.
How would you want to envision this?
What we could do first is, if you want to give us your proposals,
Yes.
then we can probably ask you some questions in the moment. I would like to keep the time set. I don't want to cut into the ESP time, you know?
that's fair.
So let's see if we can get the questions formulated and back in after caucus. And if not, this is a crazy idea, but we could always communicate, Bridget, to you outside of the meeting, say, I have some answers for you, so that we can make the most of our time together. But I really want to keep to the start time of the next session if we could.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So so how about we go through the proposals, you ask questions, and then we'll caucus.
Yeah, and then if we
so
have
try
time
have
to.
wrap up discussion.
Yeah, and we have to pick other dates, which we'll get to
That's-
in
yeah,
a
that'll be
little
good.
while.
Yeah.
We have some dates to throw your way.
Okay, that's perfect. Do you want me to help you?
This or this. If we do the councils, we wouldn't. Yep. You have them written down?
I'm sorry?
You have them written down?
I do, yeah.
I like how they do their,
Yeah.
they have a nice system. I like it.
Mine seems so uninviting.
Traditional.
Just saying, I like how you organize. This is, I really do. I don't know who.
Thank you.
Part of your wheelhouse.
I just set the initial, and then Ted has
Yeah,
followed the
no.
formatting.
I think it's a model.
It's just, I have to laugh because it just seems that when an educator presents you with something, it's like visually, very nicely organized. I love it.
I'm also going to give you the resubmitted one, just so we can
okay.
quickly go over
Great.
it. I'm sure there won't be many questions surrounding it, but just so we all have it.
It's a coach.
Connor, is this the one you sent yesterday?
Exactly, coach one,
One you sent
exactly.
yesterday.
Connor, do you want me to?
Yes.
And the 3-hole punch hasn't gone unnoticed.
I have mine right here. Sorry, here. Thank you.
So, before we get to our new proposals and our final proposals, I just want to memorialize what's already happened via email between myself, Bridget, and Rich. The academic coaches' work conditions, the academic coaches met after the January 4th meeting. They brainstormed just one or two other things they'd like to add. So we're pulling Proposal 6 and resubmitting Proposal 6. Just to go through it very quickly, I'll read it aloud. A is the same of who it consists of. B is this, once again, based on flexibility of schedules. Flexibility allows coaches to meet with teachers as needed and supervisor needs. The appropriate director will do evaluations. The average of 7-hour days per week, and their work shall not exceed 35 hours. Academic coaches will be afforded 25-minute duty-free lunch. Everything under F, I think, is right around the same. Yep, just the exact same things that's expected. Going into G, coaches may be required to work additional hours in the summer as agreed upon with their supervisor, rather. The rationale there is just, it doesn't get too excessive, of course, but they do understand that that's been the nature of their job. This work may include development, preparation, and facilitation of PD and training as agreed upon. Work may also include curriculum revision and development and any other work as agreed upon between the coach and the supervisor, and they would be paid $50 per hour. That was also proposed last time. H is new. H is coaches will be given at least 30-day notice before the date of presentation to have adequate time to prepare. This would be for summer work, half-day professional development, full-day professional development, or any other scenario that presents itself in the future that is agreed to by the coaches and their supervisor. The rationale here is, in the past, they felt at times maybe something was sprung on them. They just want to have time to make sure it's a quality presentation, whatever they're working on. Coaches shall collaborate with the class and teacher. Coaches will not be required to be in the room when a substitute's in the classroom. That was reflected in the last Proposal 6. And J is also the same.
Okay.
Any questions with that resubmitted? It's not terribly different, but there were just some differences that we wanted to make sure were submitted as its own proposal.
Thank you. I guess no questions on this one. Okay.
Okay, and now we will go through our last proposals here. So I will turn it over to Emily Niles for Proposal 14.
All right, so this one is regarding bus monitor stipends. We feel as though for grades K to 6, it would be a great opportunity for those lower grade levels to have a stipend opportunity in Appendix B, since we often don't. And it would be to do bus duty at the end of the day, staying no more than an additional half hour, and shall receive an annual stipend of $3,600 for that position. We thought that this was best for students in terms of obvious safety, expectations, and whatnot at the end of the day, so things stay consistent for them, and give the teachers and staff members an opportunity for Appendix B at some of the lower levels.
Excellent. I also wanted to note also, by the way, these proposals, I'm an English teacher, I do like themes. This theme of these proposals is attract and retain the best educators for Tewksbury Family Deserves. Last time was, 2 times ago was safety for all students, and last time was doing the best for family, parents, and their child. Okay, proposal 15. So as we do with academic coaches and SLPs, the DLC working conditions have never been quite memorialized. Josh and I met with the DLC teachers. There was a lot of discussion, but we kind of came to this final rationale for what their working conditions are. Number 1, in order to ensure the best learning conditions for students in DLC classrooms, class sizes will be a top priority. A, DLC classrooms in the preschool grade will not exceed 7. B, DLC programs in K to 8 will not exceed 5. And C, DLC programs in 9 to 12 will not exceed 8. 2, in each school, DLC programs will have a BCBA dedicated solely to their program. If this BCBA is absent, every effort will be made to ensure a general education BCBA will be present in the building. The rationale there right now is quite a few of our DLC educators are really feeling the brunt of not having a full-time BCBA and being assisted with different behavior concerns and whatnot. 3, each teacher will receive a duty-free lunch equal to the length of student lunch. 4, each teacher will receive 1 preparation block a day. Additionally, each DLC teacher shall receive 5 additional blocks per week split between preparation, consulting, common planning, and classroom business. DLC teachers will have complete discretion as to how these 5 additional blocks are used. In the case a DLC teacher finds it necessary to remain with students during their duty-free lunch or preparation time, they will be compensated based on the teacher hourly rate outlined in Appendix B. The rationale there is, these students are obviously in need of supervision, and there are times when the DLC educator is going to lose a little bit of prep because the staffing that day, the staffing that month. This ensures that the child is still safe and under the guise of, or under the guidance rather, of a educator, while also ensuring that there's some sort of compensation for their lost prep time. Number 5, each DLC teacher will do morning and afternoon van bus duty for DLC students on their caseload. However, DLC teachers will be excused from building-wide bus and lunch duty rotations. Number 6, DLC teachers shall have full discretion to employ their own teaching methods, techniques, and practices within the classroom. The rationale here is there are some applications our DLC educators love using, but at times they've grown frustrated with certain programs. And they are professionals and they know after all the years they've worked, they know what's best for their students. Number 7, the dissolution of a DLC classroom cannot occur until the district has met with the DLC teachers and a member of the TTA leadership. No DLC classroom can be dissolved for a new school year later than the last day of the current school year. Number 8, all DLC teachers will be given the opportunity to assist in the hiring of classroom aides and paraprofessionals for their classroom. No DLC teacher will be forced to participate in the process. And 9, each DLC teacher shall be provided adequate release time by their principal for the purpose of observations and visitations to sending schools in order to attend transition meetings and in preparation for receiving new students for the following school year. Once again, I'm going to get, if Josh wants to make any comment beyond me, this is just like the last 2 groups. They've gone years without any sort of distinct working conditions. Their jobs are very different than the other jobs outlined in Article 8 of the contract. Josh, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just one more point. I mean, the DLC teachers are teaching some of our neediest students across the district. And, because of that, we feel that they need some of our biggest support. And we hope the district can, work with us to find them that support.
Any questions for that one? Okay.
Can I ask just to clarify
Absolutely.
on number 7?
777.
Yep.
Yep. What's your clarification?
Yeah, I guess as a non-educator, I don't understand the dissolution of a classroom.
If numbers are going down, it's almost like a reduction in force situation.
Okay.
They just grow concerned with that because sometimes what's happened in the past is over the summer, a DLC classroom has been dissolved. So just like all of us as educators are afforded, or most of us as educators are afforded, if there's a reduction in force due to student enrollment, they'd be afforded this language.
Okay, all right, got it. Thank you.
Proposal number 16. Excitingly, I think we are on the same page here with the idea here. Department heads or department leaders will be the chair for each of the following departments, and we are adding wellness, foreign language, special education, fine arts, CBTE. We are also adding the English language learner district-wide position for all the work she does. You know, I don't think there's much persuasion because we're on the same page, but Jill, do you want to add anything very quickly?
I was prepared to tell you all about how lead teachers and department heads have a lot of the same expectations, but I just want to say I appreciate you guys seeing that we play the same role.
Yep.
I'm jazzed. Okay, so number 17. All right, I'm going to turn to Emily Noel.
All right, so number 17 has to do with, sick leave buyback at the end of one's career. So currently it sits at 15% and it has held that, and it's held that way for quite some time. We are trying to attract educators who plan to settle roots here, to stay here, to build up sick time and be in school here. And so we feel like increasing the buyback attracts teachers who will stay in the look ahead of, oh, we have a higher buyback here, like this is better for me long term. So that's the idea there. We have lost, for a myriad of reasons, our contract proposals look to help solve, but we have lost a lot of veteran teachers. And so some of the things that we look at aim to keep them in the district longer. And so this is one of those.
Any questions regarding that one? Okay, going on to tuition reimbursement. Oh, no, sorry about that. That's me. Going on to proposal number 18, I'm going to talk about this one. The first thing in bold is just all requests, including religious observances for a temporary leave, will be made via the Frontline or current relevant system in the event of change under the following terms and conditions. The reason we put that, especially with the religious leave, is obviously we understand this is state law with religious observance. But at times we've been approached with different members who are concerned where to go, what to do, and I've noted, that Frontline does have that option. We're just putting that there so any new member understands where to go. The Frontline application is great. We love it. So excellent. And I also give the language in case something were to change with the Frontline, or maybe Frontline changes its name again. Who knows? Personal days. The rationale here is going up to 5, and then going along the way. Personally, we want to strike the language, personal leave may not be used on a workday that falls immediately before or after the November, December, February, or April vacations, and the first 2 or last 2 days of the teacher year. Now, I know upon the onset of reading that, I understand the initial concern is, well, what if everyone calls out before the holiday break or before Thanksgiving, right? Or what if people don't want to go to the last day of school or whatnot? But what we've been seeing a lot with different members is, first of all, I think most people, the day before a vacation, it's a nice day, especially it's more of a social emotional day with your students. It's a day of high morale for kids and their teachers and educators. But along with that too, there have been situations where members have had weddings for their children, have moved their children into college, a lot of really, important life events, and unfortunately they had to take the day without pay. So at this rate, this is our way to address that. I know, and I can't promise you, obviously, but I could tell you I'm very confident. I don't think we'd see an exodus on the Wednesday half day before Thanksgiving. However, there could be that one member who needs to get on 3 flights back to Montana or something, and it's a very frustrating day for them, right? Along with all the other points I made. Any questions in regard to that? The next one sounds bizarre, but let me explain this one, okay? It's on the same proposal, okay? It's about association leave now, so we're in a different section, okay? Right now, our association leave currently is just the 7 days for the 7 members that can go to the Massachusetts delegates meeting. That's usually in April or May. And first of all, our delegation actually went up to 8 recently. But along with that, could be other events that have trainings for members, and we want to afford the opportunity where members each member can have a day if they so requested, obviously being vetted by parties and whatnot, but, with the President Association's aware of it, obviously, to use an association day. So that's basically that one. It sounds interesting, but at the end of the day, it's really just, this would include the delegation day, obviously, that's already in there, but that's our rationale there. Any questions with that?
Yeah. All members of the association, you mean anybody who's a dues-paying member of the TTA?
Yes.
So you probably have upwards of 300 of those right now.
Yeah.
So there would be 300 association days in the contract.
In that, there'd be 300 and whatever the number is available. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you can just take the day to do whatever.
There has to be an event, an actual event.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, with a name badge that you bring to
Yeah, with a
the
name
principal in that
badge.
plastic
I have a bunch of
registration.
my cards,
Awkward
very
name
nice.
badge.
I collect them.
Do you recycle that name badge plastic? I want to know.
I just hang them up so I don't throw them away.
Or you
don't worry.
reuse it, I mean. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions on that?
Wait, is it all on the same day? I mean, so all.
No. So the first thing I was talking about was the delegation day. Right now, and it's based on your membership number. So ours is 8, right? So that event would have 8 from the whole membership.
That means 8 people on the same day get permission to go to this.
One conference.
Yes,
But there's not
conference.
going to be, this would be kind of, I don't think there'll be all member, an all member day on a Monday during a school year, right? So it's like sometimes there are ESP trainings, sometimes there are new non-professional teacher status trainings.
Okay, so there's multiple trainings that are offered
Exactly. Like,
separate
it
from
wouldn't
your
be- that'd be a whole-
conference.
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I do want to say too, some of the trainings that are offered actually are very good for teachers and they bring back wonderful things back to the classroom, back to the schools.
Okay.
So, it's something to think about as you consider that language.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Next, I'm going to turn it to, is it Emily? No,
All right, so this here, we're looking to increase the amount that we can get for tuition reimbursement from the $750 to $1,500. This is just simply because courses are very expensive nowadays to take. And we're also looking to have a little flexibility here in terms of how we use the money. So if I want to take a course that's $900, I obviously have another $600 left. We would like the opportunity to be able to then put that $600 toward another class, which as of right now, we can't. It's kind of like one and done, whatever your course costs. You get that amount as long as it doesn't exceed the $750. And so with that, we just kind of adjusted that total number underneath. And then we added, if not all the funds have been used, they shall notify members as of April 1st of the remaining funds. Again, looking toward an opportunity for a teacher who really would like to take a course, higher their education, obviously learn new skills, tips and tricks for students and whatnot as well. So that one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, and just to go off that too, student debt right now is an all-time high, right? And I even can speak personally, there are courses I'd like to take to, first of all, climb to the next lane, right? But also to learn about the updated literature in education, right? But I already have payments monthly for a long time. And
They will eventually go away.
Well,
I
eventually,
promise.
I cannot wait
You
for
have to
that
be as
day.
old as I am, but they will go away.
so that's another rationale there. Any questions with that one?
Makes sense.
Okay. The next one is our Appendix A, salary and longevity. I'm going to turn it to Emily Niles first. No. Oh, is Emily Noel first?
No, longevity.
Your steps.
Yes, sorry, steps, got it. Okay, so we are looking at the salary schedule, and we are looking to eliminate steps 1 and 2, starting in the 24-25 school year, and then renumber steps 3 to 10 as 1 to 8. And then we're looking to add a new top step after you renumber, that will be step 9, and that will be 6% higher than the previous step, which would be the current step 8, and be able to apply this to the bachelor's plus 15, 30, at a 4% base increase from the former bachelor's step 7.
I want to say we understand that, the bachelor's past a certain year is being grandfathered out. And so this is just to honor some of our members who stay in this district for so long, to see a bit of more, not the same, right? Because we're honoring degrees, of course, and credits, but honoring their time here before they eventually do retire. Now, on to the cost of living adjustment. And I just want to preface this with, just like you have said to us, we are here to bargain this. But I do want to start this off by, this job is getting harder. This job is not what it was 20 years ago. This job is not what it was 15 years ago or even 10 years ago. For a myriad of reasons. A pandemic obviously could be the obvious answer, but it's a changing day. Technology's changing the way we teach. And it's starting to become a little exponential on what we're having to keep up on as educators. So because of that, we want to stay a competitive district where educators want to stay for their pay, and that is why we're presenting an 8% starting September 1st, or the beginning of the year 24-25, 8% 25-26, and 8% 26-27.
And I was just going to add that the cost of living in general, as we all know in this room, has increased greatly for everybody. So that's another reason.
Emily, do you want to wrap this up?
Yep, and so then I'll look at longevity. So again, interest in keeping veteran teachers in the district. So right now, longevity is flat for a teacher. So if you make a certain number of years, you get X amount of money kind of tacked on. So we're looking to make it a percentage instead of a flat amount. So in other words, whatever your salary is at 10 years, you would get 1% of that. And then at the next benchmark, which was 13 years, you'd get 1% of whatever your current salary is. So it keeps up with what you are making. In addition to that, it should actually make future negotiations a little bit easier because it will just go up as the base salaries go up. That's kind of one of the general principles. Keeping people around for longer is a big deal in a job where people aren't just leaving their school or their district, they're leaving education altogether. That's kind of the biggest out for educators right now, is they just go to corporate for a lot of reasons. But trying to keep people in the district who have that experience, trying to modernize the longevity statute could be a very good way of doing that.
Any questions with anything regarding Appendix B?
I do have one.
Yes.
So when you talk about steps that, percent increase that goes across steps and lanes, is that above and beyond what you've already proposed here in terms of the new?
You mean bullet 2?
The new maximum step.
Right, so the new maximum step would be 6%. Are you also looking at 8% over that 6%?
Yes, because it would be a new step, so yes.
So anybody who's currently on step 10 would go to the new step, which is 6% higher,
Yes.
and then they'd get an 8% increase on top of that. So for year one, they're actually getting a 14% increase.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can I just, you guy in the room, just want to understand, so I'm just looking at the salary grid today, currently in the contract for 23-24. I'm just going to pick out, so it's master's degree, which I think out of 301 teachers, there's roughly 126 of you in the master's lane. So if I look at someone who's on step 5 currently, which is the current rate is this school year is 73,432. Theoretically, next school year, they're automatically going to 79,405, roughly roughly an 8% raise. So we're talking about they would go to step 6 and they would get not only that 8% raise in the grid today, currently they'd get another 8% raise on top of that for a total of 16%.
I think your logic makes sense, yes.
That's the way, I just want to be clear, because it's 8% on
so.
what's in the 23-24 table.
No, I think you're correct,
Today.
yes.
And I just want to kind of highlight something for you. I mean, a lot of times people look at something like that.
Sure.
It's like going to the salary schedule, like, it's crazy because somebody would be getting like step movement, right? Which is its own percent.
Right.
Then a percent on top of that.
Right.
But education is kind of a unique profession in delaying getting to a professional wage. There's no other profession where it takes, like 10 years to get to that maximum salary. And there's really no other profession that requires the credentialing, the education, the internship, like, which is what student teaching is, all that. And you start out ballpark 52,000. So a lot of times people say, well, it's crazy, you're getting this % increase. But that's only because it's been structured to delay what people really should be getting really out of the gate, you know, with all that credentialing and expertise and skills.
That's fair, Ted, and I certainly don't want to speak for the administration, but I mean, every time that new hire offer letters come across our desk from the school committee perspective, it's very rare, and again, I don't want to speak on behalf of Brenda or any of our administration, but it's very rare that I see them ever starting at step one. Very, very rare. So to your point about getting 10 years to get to that max step, I don't know that it's very common in Tewksbury, but again, I don't want to speak, I don't have those numbers in front of me, so.
I think we have one step one teacher in the district right now.
Yeah.
And if I could respond to that as well, it doesn't mean that that teacher didn't take step one somewhere along the line, right? Like, they're not necessarily step one for the district, but they certainly went through a step one process in their career. But to Ted's point too about limiting, kind of that limited slow roll of salary, it's also federal law that dates back to the New Deal, history teacher here, that prevents educators from earning time and a half. Right? So not only are they slow rolled, but for any additional work above and beyond the school day, they don't even get time. If you look at the Appendix B stipends, right? They don't get even hour, they get half time, quarter time to do what ostensibly is overtime work. So, you know, again, to Ted's point, it feels like a shock, but the reality of education, it's uniquely different in the way it's structured, salary-wise.
Yeah, it's a salaried position. You're right. Okay.
All right, and then we are going to go to Appendix B. Before we even talk about it, I just want to say the committee's work was very helpful. I know I've said it quite a few times in writing and such, but this was huge. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We really, you know, the work did not go unnoticed. And I also want to commend the fact that, yeah, we can give that. We're giving out the documents that you emailed us, just so we're all on the same page exactly of what.
Thank you.
So that both, do you want me to hand, oh, you have them too, okay, excellent. So I just want to say, you know, both sides even took the initiative to go past the 22-23 school year to get as much work done until this very moment. So for that, thank you for both sides for doing that. It goes unnoticed and extremely
That should be
appreciated. Or does go, it goes noticed and appreciated.
Both sides of the table agreed to go past the June 30th deadline to keep working on it.
Exactly. And
That
that's,
should be highlighted. Yeah.
exactly, and that's
Yeah.
very appreciated.
Summer meetings, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what Ted is handing out to you are actually the documents created by the committee. So one of them is going to be the rearranging of a few different columns of the Appendix B, and the other one is the club guidelines. We wanted to just make sure we handed these out because we wanted to ensure we're all on the same page, just for complete organization reasons. Now, I think, Peter, would you want to go through it, or do you want to go through the rationale?
Yeah, I think I'll just go through the, I don't think we'll go through this.
No,
okay,
I mean the
yeah.
proposal, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I'll go through the proposal and the rationale.
So once again, the reason we're handing out those other two documents is just because the last mini proposal and the big proposal pertains to those two documents, so we're all on the same
Club
page.
guidelines.
Exactly.
And then the tiers, right?
The tiers, exactly.
Okay, got it.
So do you want to walk through just the changes that we're proposing?
Yep.
Okay.
So I just want to start off by saying, you know, I echo the comments that have been made about the work done by the Appendix B committee. It was, dare I say, enjoyable. You know, it was. At one point, I remember early in March or April, somewhere along there, I was walking out and I was saying like, hey, you know, like I actually enjoy this. And I remember Rich was like, you really enjoy this? I was like, actually, I do, yeah. Kind of little insight into my dry personality. But I could tell he did too, and I know I'm, I know I'm not overstepping, So it was a breath of fresh air to work collaboratively to come up with proposals that we believe enhances the student experience as well as the educator experience. Okay, changes right out of the gate. We're proposing 8% for each year as a salary increase upon those stipends. If you look back at the history of Appendix B, and all the committee members have noted it in the past, and I'm sure during caucus you will as well, Appendix B, especially when it comes to salary, gets kind of like, to say it gets the crumbs is probably an understatement. So we just want to acknowledge the little that has come across for Appendix B salaries with an appropriate cost of living adjustment. We're looking to add bus duties, stipends, 2 for the Dewing, 2 for the Heathbrook, 2 for the Center, and 2 for the Ryan at $3,600 each position in the academic column. And then the TMHS morning announcements would have its own position at $3,762 as an extracurricular column. And the TMHS advisor academic planner, which would also be in the academic column at $5,000 stipend.
Can I just give a little rationale on those two?
Yeah, please.
So TMH's morning announcements, right now we have Emma Sweetapple at the high school. She does an amazing job. Every morning, she, and every day, well after school, she's taking in announcements from all of us. And, I'm sure some of us are right in a hurry, so she has to probably decipher a few of our words, right? But along with that, organizing every day after school, who's speaking tomorrow, who wants to speak tomorrow. Some students may not want to miss this class. They not want to miss another class, but they could miss that class, right? There's crew, there's the people presenting every day, 180 days a year. It's absolutely amazing what she does. So that's that rationale. Like right now, she is doing it completely, has to get here early, has to stay here late on a volunteer basis. The other planner, which would be in the academic column, is, and I know we're all aware, in the past, I think it was 2019, we added advisory. And advisory is a block that happens, I think at this rate, twice a month, could be increased, could be decreased. But what's happening is, all parties are kind of struggling a little bit because it's a lot of backwards design, right? The use of Aperture, understanding Aperture, but not just Aperture, also understanding the mentor program that now our upperclassmen students are doing, understanding where do we want to be for each grade level by June. That could be assigned to someone with the stipend to assist administration to really be the head honcho on planning that. And I think that would streamline everything and make it so all educators also understand from this person, maybe they do a presentation at the beginning of the year, where do we want 11th graders to be with this program by the end of the year? Where do we want 9th graders to be? So I just want to give those two rationales on exactly what those roles were. But Peter, go ahead.
And also, we concur with the administrative proposal about chaperoning any student event at the hourly rate, should a chaperone be needed. And we understand that there's a process involved as well.
I don't know that we said hourly rate, but we did say that we would talk
Yeah.
about what that compensation was, just to be clear. Okay, thank you.
Additionally, the hourly rate we're proposing should be increased to $50 per hour, starting in the 24-25 school year. And the union accepts all conditions created by the Appendix B Committee for athletics and extracurricular sections. And the document presented shall switch Tier 1 and Tier 2 in the extracurriculars as both parties discussed this occurring, which we discussed in one of our previous Appendix B meetings.
Any questions in regards to that? Yes.
Yeah. So just a couple things to just clarify, and then I actually just want to echo your sentiment as well, Peter, about, the collaboration efforts here. And I really do feel that there's a lot of things that I think the district and the administration and the union come together on. And for me to kind of witness it play out and unfold, it was a good process from my perspective. I think there was a lot of good dialogue.
I agree.
I do, I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because when we did, I know that many of you guys in the room got a survey, probably going back now, 6 months ago now, maybe, on any extracurriculars that maybe that you were involved in or that you had maybe been involved in the past, how many students on average, how frequently you met, what are the sort of above and beyond things that you did to prepare for that, really trying to encompass all of that data in some of this tiering. And I do remember, and Peter, I think I more worked on this with Jillian, but there was a lot of already adjustments, if you will, with terms of some of the amounts that were today, whether they were certain athletics or certain extracurriculars. Now, I don't want to speak for Mr. Libby over there. He keeps the purse string, so to speak. But there were a lot of things that we added to this based on the feedback from the members that either weren't active currently, maybe had been running at one point in time years ago in some cases. So I think, at one point when we looked at sort of the total of it all, it was substantially higher in terms of dollar amount, assuming everything ran today, right? Which again, we know technically is not happening right now, right? It would have to be sort of resurrected in some regards, right? If someone wanted to propose it, because either there was student interest or there was advisor interest. So I just want to sort of comment on that I think that there were a lot of shifts here from where we currently are today in the current contract.
Yeah.
And then just to clarify with the proposal that you laid out, so the bus duty, and I know that that was a separate proposal that you first went through. So are you saying that the $3,600 stipend would be times 6, basically 2 at each of the elementary schools?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the chaperoning any student event at whatever the hourly rate is, that would just be for the additional chaperones,
correct.
not for the advisors
Not for the
themselves.
advisors, right.
Okay. Okay, that was all the questions I had then.
Any other questions for the Penix B? The next two will be quick. Okay, so we have 2 house cleaning proposals. The pronouns being gender neutral in the contract from here within. And then we did also think Aperture's going to be here to stay, and it's a big part of, like I just said, our advisor at the high school, the little ones at the elementary. We proposed a new Appendix F that would just slip in our agreed to memorandum of agreement that was agreed to in October 2022.
Okay, any questions? No questions, okay. All right, so we will not be caucusing on teachers today, because we got to start our next session.
Does anybody
Is there a way we, Is there a way we can do a little break? Sorry.
Absolutely, I was going to say, we could use a break right now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to take 5-ish.
I think we have 10.
The ground
we have
rules,
10
the ground rules we agreed to. said
We do it 10 minute break?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the boss of you, yes, of course.
Do you have to motion for a break, or we
I'll
all?
motion to adjourn for a recess. 10-minute recess.
Thank you. I'm in favor, so it's
Thank you, Emily.
6:03.
Yes.
Jason's ready. Okay, we resume our open meeting now at 6:22 PM. And again, I'll hand off to Roseanne while we start our ESPs.
Hello. We have one final proposal for ESPs, but we want to obviously ask you, how would you like to proceed?
If you want to go first again.
Okay, all right. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. And while Superintendent Regan is passing those out, we could take care of some housekeeping. Maybe we can set 2 additional meeting dates while we're...
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that. So we have some dates that we've pre-screened. So let me just lay them out to you. We have available March 6th, March 12th, March 21st, and March 22nd.
20th.
20th and 21st?
20th and 21st,
Why did I
yeah.
write that down wrong?
Right, with 20th and the alternate.
Okay, all right, so the 21st is preferable, with the 20th we could do.
So we already have February 15th.
Yes.
Scheduled, yep. And so we were trying, because of the vacation week in February and really only getting 1, we were trying to get 2 in March, if possible, out of those.
Okay, so
The
the first
21
two,
is-
so 6 or 12, and then 20th or 21st.
Or if the 6 and 12 work the best, then take those.
Yeah.
We'll start
6
with
or
Ted
12
first, We'll do the same.
and
since we
21 or
did
20.
Okay?
Be 6,
So let
12,
Ted
21.
first make a,
Okay, what were those?
Sorry, one more time. 6,
Yes.
12.
6th or 12th?
And 20th, 21st.
20th or 21st.
Sorry. No worries.
oh, that's okay. It's okay. Yeah, he's checking.
We're just looking for one.
Got two, right?
No, we're looking for 2.
We could schedule 2.
And technically, by ground rules, we have to just do 1 out.
But you're trying to get 2.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
so it's like-
February and then an April vacation.
There's a-
So the 6th and the
crunch in that.
21st seems good.
Wait, well, let's make sure we got the.
Do one
Can
for
you do your
10.
thumbs up or thumbs down?
Start with 6.
6 first.
6.
Okay, okay. This 6 works.
6 works.
And then what's the second one?
21st.
21st. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So March 6th and March 21st.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
We'll figure it out. Easy peasy. Perfect. So, does everybody have their copy so I can get rolling? All right. So, we are proposing, as you can see, for step up for ESPs to perform substitute duties for an absent teacher, that the principals may assign those instead of soliciting volunteers or asking. But in exchange, we're increasing the remuneration for it, as you can see at the bottom of that red line language, or marked up language. It occurred to us that if the committee were to accept the .5 sick day proposal that you have on the table, that is likely to lead to an increased need of like half a day here, half a day there coverage. So we are prepared to accept your half sick day proposal, if you would be prepared to accept our step-up language changes.
So, okay, for the common.
Well,
Yeah.
so I think This is the only one you have for us right now?
Yep, that's
Okay, so I
that's
think
the end of our proposal.
if you want, we'll do ours and then we can break. That makes sense? Okay, cool.
That makes perfect sense.
So we have copies for you. I must say there is a small edit, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Could use one.
So just before we get into there is a note at the top of here, so it just so happens, maybe it's
They need one
serendipitous.
I have one more.
Oh, you need one more?
We do.
Yep. He's got it. Everyone good with copies?
Oh, I see.
They're all
Yep.
set.
I think they, oh, do we can use it. We'll just, we can huddle around that.
That's okay, we'll hopefully share electronically.
Oh, is that what you needed?
So before we read through everything, there is a note at the top of the page. Perhaps it's serendipity, but you'll notice that a lot of our initial proposals overlap article and section with some of yours. So we're just giving you our initials. The fact that they overlap is kind of just a coincidence, okay? So I just wanted to make that so it is at the top, that they're not necessarily counters, we're just giving you our initials for the sake of not having to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so starting up in Article 5 for the salary section, we do know that the 181st day thing was a typo, so we were, getting rid of that concept. Also, there is a section in salaries, section 5, that talks about if you have to step up for a certain amount of time for somebody, sort of long-termish. Right now, it goes through like 10 days, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and it's a lot, I'm sure, even in payroll to keep track of. So we're trying to simplify it, and also you'll notice when we get to compensation, change the amount per day to reflect what those teachers, or what those ESPs, who are kind of becoming pseudo-teachers for that time, are taking on as responsibilities, and eventually having to just switch right back into their other job at some point. Then we're going to move into longevity. Are we good so far? Yeah. I don't know how often we pause for questions. Okay, great. All right, so then we're moving into longevity. So this is where our typo was. In using Excel, we messed up the numbers a little bit. So where it has the percentages, I'm just going to give you new percentages, okay? So the percentages for 7 years of service, that would be, instead of a flat amount, just like the teachers, we want to switch to a percent. So that would be 4%, and then it would just go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would be 4% after 7 years, and then it would get to 9% at 23. Okay. It's weird because there's an extra longevity line in here compared to teachers and stuff. Again, trying to keep long-term teachers in the district is the same challenge as trying to keep long-term ESPs in the district. It is a thankless job, working with needy children, kids who need a lot of different services, running their schedule, keeping track of everything you have to in your own life and in theirs, pretty much, while they're in the building. Having people around who really know what's going on is important. Also, as your proposal a minute ago shows, ESPs are often thrown into other roles at the last second. And so realizing that you do that for a long time, you should be compensated as such. Okay, questions so far?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so when we get to living wage, so we are not just proposing an increase, we are proposing to kind of dramatically change the way this district views its ESP population. Again, they are a group of people who work with kids who need the most, and they do that every day. They're with those kids every day. In some cases, they're seeing them, or in all cases, they're seeing them more than an individual teacher. They see them in all of their great moments, all of their terrible moments. They see it in all of their eating lunch, out at recess, every moment. And so in an interest of reflecting that, keeping people in the district, we're proposing salary increase that will get the ESPs in this district to a living wage.
I think you mean year 3, right, on the far right?
Well, it'll be, according to the Massachusetts standard, it'll get there a little sooner. But by the time we get to year 3, well, you can see it goes 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think you have 2 year, I think year 3 on the far column, not year 2. Is that
Oh,
what you
sorry.
meant? That's
Yeah.
okay. I think we know what you meant.
Yeah, you're right. It has 2 twice. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure.
You're right. Right.
Okay.
All right. Now, I know that if you actually sit down, Rich, and do the math, they're not even. Right? The percentages are not, the math is not pretty. I understand that. I apologize for that. But it does reflect some of the changes we've seen in the local area. We do not want to lose our best ESPs to Andover, North Andover, all of these other towns. We need to keep them here with our kids where they can do the best job that they can. Kind of as just a show and tell, being teachers. If you're an ESP in this room, can you raise your hand? Whether or not if you're a silent rep, that's fine. Okay. Can you keep your hand raised if you have a second job in order to maintain your family's financial situation? Can you keep your hand raised if you have a third job to help maintain? Okay. Keep your hand raised if you have a fourth job to help maintain. Anybody above 4? Okay. So we're asking people who are doing the hardest work in our school days to do that, and then go to an after-school job, an after-school job, a summer job, a weekend job, and be part of their families. It is an incredible burden for people who do what they do because they love the children they work with. And so what we propose probably looks very dramatic, but it is a great many back years due, and it gets us to a place where we can afford the people that we need to afford.
And as a percent, it looks like a dramatic increase, right?
We
But
don't
that
know yet.
increase-
We haven't done the math yet, so we don't know.
As a percent, it is a dramatic increase.
Okay.
But the dramaticness of that increase is only testimony to how grossly underpaid the ESPs are. And it is obscene that people who do skilled work, working with the district's most vulnerable, neediest children, are paid fast food restaurant wages. Many of these people, they can get a job elsewhere at working in a warehouse without being punched, kicked, spat upon, without doing the skilled work that they do. This hits me kind of close to home. I was raised by a single-parent paraprofessional, and we just lived with my grandparents, right? That's not an option for a lot of people. People shouldn't have to work three jobs. When they're doing their primary job, should be this. The skills that they and everybody, the people, Rich, or the people behind you know this, everybody else in the room knows this. The skills that it takes to adapt instruction, to be sensitive to a kid's moods, there's a reason that we're unable to properly staff these buildings. These kids deserve somebody who's not working extra jobs. The kids deserve to have a fully staffed ESP staff so that so that the kids can get the services that they need. And the people who are doing that work deserve to be paid as professionals. That's commensurate with the importance, the skills, the challenges, and the demands of the job. So, and that's why, not just here, but across the state, we're seeing the salaries increase, whether it's Andover, Lawrence Tech. There is an awakening to how grossly underpaid and how important our ESPs are. So we hope that you afford the folks in this room a wage that's commensurate with what they do.
Questions?
Any questions?
Can I just want to clarify, so the ESP day today, based on the way, because I know that we kind of already have proposed a
Right.
particular proposal that's around that ESP day, number of hours, number of days, et cetera. An ESP today in our district is paid at an hourly rate versus like a teacher who is paid at a salary for the year. So the hourly rate, what does that break down to from what you're proposing in these salary tables? And
You mean like what the total number is broken down over the hours?
Rate
As now?
per hour compensation.
Right, because what I'm trying to understand is it's again, maybe it's construed now because we have multiple proposals on the table.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to understand is, because I'm trying to choose my words carefully here because the term livable wage comes up a lot when we talk about ESPs, and I want to be crystal clear about this because the work day itself is based on, right now, today, the way the contract is based on the student day, minus maybe some time for lunch, I believe, if I understand it correctly. So when I take that, any research that you do on livable wage always makes an assumption that it's a 2,000 an hour, 2,000 hour a year, or 2,080. 2,080. So I just want to be clear that livable wage, how are we sort of summing this up to what that livable wage is in comparison?
So I think,
Yeah.
if I understand your question, and if I'm wrong,
Yeah, please.
you clarify. But this comes down to a matter of it's not full-time by hours. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, if you use the livable wage study that was often cited.
It's based on a different
Its
number of
assumption on what is a full-time job
Yeah.
is 2,080 hours per year.
So-
That's what MIT is saying.
So I will say, we're not countering yet for the hours.
Yeah,
So just
sure.
for the sake of
Sure.
clarity.
Yeah.
This job is quite frankly not like any other job you would do at that number of hours. It is extremely different. If there's someone out there who has a similar job, I don't know. But I'm actually unaware of another career that is similar. So I do understand the idea that the hours don't match. I get that. And that is, from a financial standpoint, a big deal. I get that.
Yeah.
If we can find somebody who works those hours, who agrees to do that, to get hit and kicked and chase after children and stand with them at breakfast and open their milks and help them learn how to socially interact with another kid appropriately and how to talk to an adult, and helps monitor how they answer test questions and how they do MCAS, and helps modify work on the fly and implement my modifications, I think we would entertain that idea.
Sure.
But it's just not a similar comparison in respect to your question.
And also, just as an hourly wage, they're grossly underpaid at the hourly rate.
Well, I'm just relating it in terms of the term livable wage.
Right.
That's all. I'm not saying I disagree with that statement, Ted. I'm just simply saying, I'm trying to relate it to that phrase, livable wage, that we consistently hear out there specifically about ESPs, right? So I just want to make sure we're on the same.
And
We're all
keep in mind-
operating from the same basic knowledge of facts,
Yes, and as an hourly wage, we're looking for a dramatic increase in the hourly wage. But keep in mind, what we're proposing is to get them to a $40,000 starting wage. That's really low. I mean, to live in the greater Boston area on $40,000, by itself, that's not really a livable wage.
And can I make a comment on Mr. Russo's question as well?
Ask my permission.
It's a legitimate question because, as you said, you need to compare apples to apples. But I think it's important to know two things. One, Mr. Russo, you mentioned that we're all working well beyond the work day. And so that clearly impedes anybody's ability to actually obtain a full-time job outside of education. But then second, the amount of hours, if it's just based on students, again, they're not a proposal, just kind of talking here. If it's just based on the student hours, the number of hours that an ESP would be at this job, while it might not be comparative to the 8-hour workday, it's prohibitive of them to go and find a job that would be a livable wage 8-hour day It would mean that in order to make a livable wage, they would have to get a second, third, fourth job and work 14, 16 hours a day. Whereas the job that they care the most about, it is our belief, should pay them the livable wage. And the time that they have off should be used to recharge so they can come back, not so that they can go back to work and try to earn a living for their family. Thank you.
I'd also like to jump in here. After 24 years of working in the system, when I got hired, I had to have a college degree. I had to have a teaching license. And after 24 years, I'm making $30,000. That's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And I know things have changed, but when I got hired, that's what I had to have. So.
Okay.
And I only went up to 30,000 with the last negotiation. We were well below that before that.
So, yeah, I can speak to that last negotiation to where I think we tried very hard to make an adjustment.
We did differentiate degreed and non-degreed. Yeah.
And so, I think there's a lot of work to still be done, for sure. I can tell you, I think nursing is right there.
My mother's a nurse, she'll be mad at me for not.
Shout out to the nurses. Is right there in that kick spit category.
Done, been there, done.
But it's, again, the same thing. You do it because you love it. You show up every day because you love it. I see it in the classrooms. I see it in the schools. You're there because you love it. And so, I think this is something we really need to consider. I would love to hear more about what your thoughts are on our proposals to you as well. So I don't have any comments on this at this time. I think I'm just more curious to see where, some of the proposals we put forth, where we land on some of that.
Any other questions?
Okay, so can we do, good for appendix? Okay.
You bet.
So, to the appendix section of the contract. So currently, the ESP contract section, it doesn't, there aren't very many stipends. There's a Braille stipend, there's the master stipend, which we put in last contract, and there's the ever hotly debated diapering
Do
stipend.
we have to talk about
No,
that?
not right now. It's okay. I also did not want to discuss it today, so it's fine. I'm just putting it out there.
We still have
I think
PTSD.
for context, people need to understand how in-depth
Just
we are
know,
with that.
our members get a lot of shit.
He said it on live feed.
So we have a, like
You
a
never cease
Excel
to
sheet
amaze
to
me.
print out for you, that lists a series of add-on type stipends based on licenses that you can get. So things like first aid, CPR, ABA, RBT, many others, also doing van duties. Some of our ESPs ride the vans with their students in the morning and the afternoons. Things like data collection, that is a huge part of ESP. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, continue. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think our town, I'd have to look at that further with the principals, but we do have other aides.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Another
No,
group.
it's okay. If you have a question.
Yeah, I would have to
all right,
ask
never
them. I believe that's HR.
Continue, I'm sorry.
You sure?
We were just, I was just,
You can just ask the question.
no, I was blurting out a question instead of waiting till you were finished. And my teachers would be horrified.
It's okay, I went to school with nuns. You
Yeah,
can't
bless
even-
them. Oh, my goodness, yeah. So continue. I apologize.
So things like, I was at Ride the Van with their students, data collection, so a lot of like the behavioral plans children are on, or just like how is their engagement, how are they progressing through a project, things like that. Sometimes the only person who can really do that is the ESP because I am teaching. So if that's part of their job for, a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, those types of things we've compiled into an Appendix B. Now, obviously, it's a good idea for, like the football coach or the gym teacher to also be CPR certified, first aid, things like that. So we're not saying that they would exclusively be for ESPs. We could just tack them on to the existing Appendix B list. Do you know what I mean? But they do cater more to what the ESPs would have to deal with in their jobs, students they may encounter. And if they want to specialize in a certain thing because that's a group of children they like working with, then, it would give them the ability to do that. I also think it would help in our earlier proposal of bringing jobs back into the district from outside contractors. Then, if the district needs somebody to be specialized, right? Now, oh, well, we can give you this stipend, you can get specialized, and now you can help our student. So in the interest of that, are there any questions? But do you have a burning question?
No, go ahead. Rich, do you have a question?
Just to clarify, so are you, I'm clear on the stipend piece for the ESP, so are you also suggesting to mirror that with Appendix B for the
Well,
teacher
technically
contract? for those
ESPs can
additional-
already take jobs in Appendix B, right? Like, I think is
Yeah,
the
you know what?
cheerleader coach?
Yeah, no, no.
But
I'm
she
with
is
you,
one.
I'm
So
with you.
we're just saying that these wouldn't be exclusive to ESPs, right?
Okay.
We're just saying that they are more catered to their job.
Understood.
So like, by all means, if, another teacher wanted to have ABA certification or whatever, and the district thought that that was useful, they could put in for it. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, were there any?
Is there a spreadsheet that's supposed to go?
We will, I don't know why we didn't
Yeah.
print it, but we will print it for you. It's like page 2 of this,
All right.
so maybe that's it.
So it's-
We can print
it's
that for you during.
To be provided. Got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any other questions on these? Okay, thank you.
So do we want to talk?
Caucus time.
We're just talking about ESP stuff.
Yes,
Yes.
just the ESPs.
Okay,
Yes.
just making sure.
So, how much time do you think we should allocate?
20 minutes?
How much?
20?
Sure, 20's good, and,
So,
Or 25? 25.
that's
7:15.
Well, it's
Let's say
7:15, yeah, 25, 25.
7:15.
7:15?
Yeah.
Do you have to? Sounds good.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm going to motion to recess for 25 minutes.
I'm in agreement.
Yep.
favor,
Yes,
say
aye, yes, all right.
6:49. Okay. And we return now to our meeting at 7:17 PM. Begin? Dan, I'll let you start.
So, how would you like to proceed?
Do you want to counter it first if you have them? since
We
you-
we have, well, we can accept your proposal about personal days on the ESP side, which is changing housekeeping, language on, is it Article 8, Section 1, Paragraph 1? As long as the two subsequent paragraphs stay in place. And by that, I mean, 8. Yes, you proposed to change the word may to shall. ESP shall be granted 3 personal days, or will be granted 3 personal days, upon approval of the building principal instead of the superintendent. That's obviously fine. And then enter the request in the whatever portal you're using, that's fine. And then, of course, we understand that you're not proposing any changes to the 2 paragraphs that follow about the restrictions on which days they fall on. So with that understanding, we obviously accept that. Now, yes. Oh, that's teachers. Hold on. Just hold on a second. Any items that have a financial impact, we're not going to have an official response to tonight. We have to analyze, the cost of contract, if you will, because, anybody who doesn't know this, financial resources are finite and usually never enough. So we need to look at the overall cost of contract and then figure out where we are with that. So the ones that you proposed today, they are financial in nature. And we obviously want to see the stipend spreadsheet before we respond.
Oh, yes, we did print those for you, so
Yeah,
tell.
and I just will say, we did do a rough calculation of added costs for what the joint committee agreed to on the Appendix B on the teacher contract. So if we're adding more stipends potentially to that, it's going to
Change the
increase that, which then leaves less money for the other things that you are proposing.
We understand that these weren't calculated for.
Got you. All right, so that, just bear that in mind. We don't want to sound like there's no Santa Claus, but there is a Santa Claus. We have to, that was sneeze. We have to be mindful that when you increase that thing, you have less money to go around for other things. Thank you for this. Sure. All right. So that's tonight's proposals. Then going back to the ones that you had submitted previously, when you had proposed to have prep time, I think we need to hear your thoughts on our proposal to have the workday be 7 hours before we respond to that one.
Okay.
And then the joint proposals that you made, I feel like I've been promising forever to get you language on the assault protection, and I promise, unless something very unforeseen happens, we'll have some language for you for that assault protection language that you had put out the very first meeting.
Just because that was a common proposal, were you also looking at the one we talked about the first meeting about the outside contract?
Excuse me?
The outside contract one or not?
We are, I shouldn't speak for the administration and the school committee. I think that is something that's definitely on the table for consideration. And if I might misspeak, so Superintendent, please interrupt me if I do. The precision aids, is that what you're talking about?
All the outside contracts for help, for like positions, other
For
positions.
union positions.
For union
outside.
positions.
Oh, well,
yes.
there's some that maybe teaching staff I might be talking about. There's some that we may have difficulty getting people to apply to be direct employees. So if you have to fill the void with an outside agency, that you just have to, because there's certain services you have to provide to keep the promises you made on an IEP, for example.
I understand that it's hard to fill education spots in general right now. I do think that we are a bit unprecedented in the amount of spots that we outsource, especially for the ESPs.
Well, yes, I know, but all right, so let's take them one at a time. The ESP outsourcing that you speak of, it's the precision, I'm going to get this.
Precision
Precision
HR.
HR?
Yes.
Yes. They as I understand it, are in those,
Non-instructional.
yeah, they're non-instructional, they're moderate to severe special needs aides, generally speaking. Is that right?
Student-specific or shared student, and the longer day as well.
Oh, and they have a 7-hour day, workday. So the assignments that they have, as I understand it, are probably a little different in general in nature than the direct employees.
No.
Well,
Their job ends up being the same, they just mostly deal with 1 or 2 students, but other districts hire those people directly.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying in Tewksbury, if you have them all unit positions, which we're looking at, there's no secret, that's definitely being looked at. Those are going to be unit positions, and any person who's a direct employee is potentially going to be assigned to any positions, you know. Okay, so more on that later. So we are taking that into consideration, but we're not ready to definitively say it's happening or it's going to happen on a set date. The parental leave provision and the bereavement provision and the sick leave provision that is a part of your joint assignment, a joint proposal, we'll have to put that into the bucket of financial implication ones, so we'll hold those for the moment. The sick days, as I said, we await your response to our step-up language proposed changes before we respond. We just would simply say that we would accept the half 6-day proposal if you accept our proposal on the step-up provision. And then assignment. I'm thinking in Unit A, there is language about the date by which we're targeting notifications to unit members. There is language in there.
There is language in there.
Yes.
There is. It's on
And-
the, if you have the one that's column by column, it has one of them.
Well, Unit B has language set out, but Unit A says no language existing past practice. But I think there is a teacher contract provision that speaks to
It's in
that.
page 19, Article 10.
There
Thank
are
you.
dates, but there isn't something that says you get like told what it is.
Teachers,
It's page
Article
19,
10,
Article
Section
10.
Teachers will be notified of changes in their programs for the coming year, including schools to which they will be assigned, grades or subjects, blah, 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 as soon as practicable and normally no later than the end of the school year. Changes may be made after that date. I'm kind of paraphrasing, because of unexpected circumstances, obviously. So I guess what you're saying is you want to be affirmatively notified that your assignment won't be changing.
So there is a current practice of people getting these letters. I think it was probably just started as like it made life easier, right? To like print these out and have people sign them and give them in. We're trying to put that into like, we are going to keep getting these, because it is helpful for people. And it does solidify end confusion. Like those things are very helpful.
So you will be assigned, again, as the such and such teacher, instead of, we only have to notify you if it's changing? Is that what you mean?
Well, right now, everyone gets a letter.
Are you asking like what the letter says is what you'll be?
No.
Oh,
I think what I'm saying is, the committee's required to tell you when your assignment's going to change. If your assignment's going to change. If it's going to stay the same, you don't hear from them, in other words, per the contract. But what you're saying, in practice, everybody gets a letter.
I would also say that all the teachers get.
Got you. Okay.
No, it's in common proposal.
Yeah. Right, but right now ESPs don't.
Right.
We do,
Oh, okay,
but the
okay, I get what you're
ESPs
saying.
don't. So we're trying to make that past practice solidified and make it for everybody.
Got you.
Because
Okay.
it's easier.
Can I ask one question? So there's last sentence where it says administration will maintain this assignment the following school year. So is that to say, I can't even imagine how hard it would be to think I'm doing one job and then have to do a different job come September. So I get that. But should there be 3 people that leave the district and now those positions are open and the superintendent now has to fill those positions, the superintendent would not have the ability to reallocate or reassign somebody? If they've gotten a letter, that letter would have to be stay
I
behind.
do, that sentence was put in more for the ESPs, because because as a common proposal, the ESPs get moved constantly. Like it is, I know that building principals do their absolute best not to do it, but if somebody leaves, if somebody's out, if they have to, they are refinagling those staff all the time. Sometimes it's just for the day, sometimes it's very much not, and sometimes it is in very little warning. So that sentence was added mostly with the ESPs in mind. if there's a concern about it on the teacher side, we could definitely look at it, but that sentence was mostly concerned about the ESPs.
Sure.
And I will tell you that we're not going to accept that. Here's why. The population that you serve is in flux all the time, all the time. The nature of your job, you're dealing with humans, and people move, needs change, populations change, staff changes. It's in flux. And there's no way that the administration can commit that the assignment you get as of June 30th is going to stay in effect all next year. They cannot have their hands tied like that. It doesn't reflect the reality of the school environment. It just doesn't. Now, can they endeavor to keep it the same? If possible, yes. They can say, as building needs arise, they have the right to change it, something along those lines.
So just to clarify,
Yes.
are you rejecting any language of the sort, or are you going to give us a counter with something that you're more amenable to?
I think what our position is now is we're rejecting the last sentence.
So okay.
So a counter.
But we will think about and deliver to you, which I don't have the verbiage today, but we will think about countering with something that reserves the right to make changes.
Okay.
In other words, I would bet you, I'd bet my house on this, no administrator is adjusting people's assignments just to be a jerk.
I agree with you.
Or just because, mwahaha, there's a need.
There is a need. I
Yes.
think that we could go back and forth about whether, that's, obviously in education, some of that has to do with staffing, which some of our proposals try to look at. Some of that has to do with programming, which is a much larger issue at play. There's a lot of factors into that.
It has to do with the needs of the students. Bottom line, very simple. Needs of students. That's the very first priority, top priority, all the time. Okay? It doesn't mean that the effect on an employee isn't to be considered, but that's not the first consideration. It's student needs. Got it?
Yes.
All right.
Do you mind?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Rosa. I just want to talk about student needs. One thing I do want to make sure we're very clear about, changing somebody's position last minute and throwing them into a situation that they're not comfortable with is also not good for student needs. So in this particular case, we're trying to minimize that situation so that these students receive the best support that they possibly can.
And that's baked into the cake already. That's what administrators put into their calculus already.
I know they do the best they can with that, but sometimes with how staffing works, how programming works, it's not always what happens. So we're looking to come up with situations in contract language that allows it to happen as often as possible. That's all.
Well, let us chew on your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. We'll try to figure something out that maybe we can all live with jointly, okay? All right. Did I not address anything that you have proposed?
Did you cite the appendix B at all?
I think.
We did just give you.
You just, yeah, so if we can just take a moment to.
Yeah, could I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Stipend, so I noticed that there is a stipend on your masters. So if you have your master's, there's a proposed stipend of $10,000. But then there's also in one of your proposals to strike the language for the existing.
So instead of the article as is with the conditions and we're just trying to make it like an appendix. That one, I will say, to correct my earlier statement, would be obviously specific to ESPs because teachers have master lanes and things like that. So that would be unique.
In any area of concentration, a master's in, like, anything?
You mean like if you held a...
If you held a master's in, like, public administration or political science or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
because,
Yes.
Okay. So then I guess my question, where right now the contract reads, if you have a master's with, whether it be in education, there's also some stipulations, which is, attend professional development, that sort of stuff. So that would all, you would want that to all go away?
I don't believe anyone took up the offer as it is laid
Okay.
out in the contract.
So,
For whatever
that's-
reason, we don't know, we didn't poll anybody, but Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe any ESP is currently taking up the master's offer as it's laid out.
Okay.
You said one. Oh, one, okay. I won't ask you to have many, but it's okay. So that is an incentive that was kind of put in that doesn't seem to be fruitful.
Okay.
We're not expecting, $10,000 is not enough to, I'm getting one right now. It's not usually enough to go out and get a master's. So, but if you have one and you're looking at, is this a job that I want to do with I have a master's degree? There is something to be like, no, this is a job that you can have. This is a job that is worthwhile. This is a job, we recognize your education level, especially where this town, I shouldn't say that, the district does value what is known as like the teacher track in ESPs. Having a master's is something you need to do to be a teacher, well, after a certain time period. And so recognizing that is, we think, valuable. Obviously, everything, numbers are negotiable and all those types of things, but the master's stipend that we put in last time does not seem to be making people excited to go to the PDs or just do all those types of things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just, only because I'm revisiting our conversation 3 years ago.
Yes.
Which was, the district wanted, from what I understand, Mrs. Terry Regan, you can correct me, they wanted to not only in recognition of an ESP having a master's, but also open the opportunity for them to get additional training so that, perhaps they did want to move on to, a teaching position or things like that, or, more often than not, be the first person to step up. And I think that was the conversation we had. So, yeah, just understanding better that rationale, eliminating this is helpful to me.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
CPR, AED, first aid, those are two different certifications, CPR and first aid? I don't know.
Yes.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I assume.
I don't know.
You can do them at one, but.
Yeah, okay, all right,
one
stop
class,
the
but-
bleed, pro-para exam. Pro-para exam. That sounds interesting.
I actually didn't know it existed until.
Right.
Like 6 months ago.
Well, thank you, because I just said the word, like, should I know that? Okay, DLC staff, ABA, RBT, restraint certificate, Braille masters, just duty, step up. other stuff. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
We do recognize that the restraint certification, the district refers to it as CPI, so we just put this in. We
Great.
do realize that the district uses another name for it.
Sure, and, I do have a question about kindergarten orientation. Do ESPs participate in that currently?
They do, yes.
Yeah. Can I ask, and it's just ignorance, but what do you?
I believe, is it?
I can,
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't, thank
So
you.
we have a schedule, so the parents say it's like 3:30 to 5:30. We have a schedule, so the parents will meet us in the classroom with the children. We will read a story, and then we'll exit the room, we'll take the kids for a tour. They'll see where the specials are, they'll see where the CAF is, we'll walk them through the line. They'll actually take a bus ride. We'll go for a bus ride and come back, and then they meet their parents, and then they continue on, but.
They get a juice box, no?
No, we don't hand out snacks.
That sounds like.
But we
fun.
get to meet the kids for the first time, which is really nice.
And when does that happen?
It's usually, I believe, the first week of school. Like, so I think we have PD that day, and I think that evening, it happens that afternoon. So it's,
It's the kindergarten open house, and it's a voluntary.
Oh, good, okay,
Opportunity, yeah.
great. All right, thank you for that. And we don't, it's your regular hourly rate, was that what you're?
Yeah, whatever it, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, any other questions, folks? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and you might have touched this, and I apologize because I was trying to do
okay.
some math.
He loves his math.
Someone has to.
I know.
Anything, and Rosanna, now that I'm thinking about it, I think you did mention this, but maybe the only thing I'll add to it is anything tied to money. So our town manager, Mr. Montori, he's going to be presenting to the select board later this week the budget for next fiscal year. Mr. Libby is presenting it to the school committee next week. I think it's the 31st, actually in this room. So anything tied to money and anything tied to time away from students. Like, I can't stress that piece enough. Time away from students. That, I think, we're prepared to come with either some counter language or try to find some amenable terms to some of the things that you're asking. And I think that's what we're prepared to do for next meeting, for sure.
Okay.
So are we?
We're good?
I have a question.
We're good on our end.
If we're ending.
Well, we have some comments about.
Oh,
what you
okay, then
Yeah,
you go ahead.
and if you guys
No,
wanna
might
go a
cover
few
it,
minutes
so you go
over?
ahead.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Do you guys okay staying a few
Yeah,
minutes?
they have counters, yeah. They have counters. I'd like to hear.
Who's going to say no to that?
Unless you want me to
Okay,
jump
go
in.
ahead, sorry.
All right, I have a question. As I've told you before, I've done this this is probably my 8th or 9th negotiation.
Yeah.
This is the last night of proposals. I feel that you've asked an awful lot of extra time from the aides, an awful lot of proposals. You haven't mentioned money to us. You haven't even given us a percentage.
Right.
So you're asking us to do all this just for a little extra hourly rate? I'm hurt by that. I really am. I've never had a negotiation.
What do you?
That admin or school committee has not given us a percentage of an increase.
Well,
I know you might start at 1, because you have.
Yeah, but
we've
I don't
always
think
got something. There's no money on the table.
Well,
You've offered us nothing.
as I recall, my recollection of negotiations is, and this is not set in stone as an approach, but we've typically had a dynamic where the association makes a salary proposal first, and then the school committee responds to it. And we could offer you a 1% increase each year, but we're not doing that. We're going to counter, but not tonight, because, as we said earlier, we have to look at the cost of contract in its entirety, because, as I said, money's finite. Now, I'm not at a loss to understand what you're referring to when our proposal asked so much more without an additional.
You've asked us to do another 40 minutes a day. You've asked us to
Well,
do.
you're getting paid for that.
But they're being paid poverty
But we
wages.
didn't
We're amenable to hear your salary proposal and respond to it. We said that tonight. We're going to respond to
But
it.
we'd be amenable to hearing what you'd like to offer us.
Well, we are not ready to make that statement tonight because we have to talk about what the cost of contract is in relation to what we anticipate to be the money that we will be able to spend on the contract. We don't know that, how those two match up yet. And so I don't know what other duties what other
I just don't
impositions
know
you're
how we
talking
can
about.
come back with any answers to any of your proposals without knowing what you're willing to offer us.
Right.
As I said, this is my 8th or 9th, and maybe last time we didn't. I can't 100% say for sure, but every other negotiation, we've been offered something.
So because we're not responding this moment, doesn't mean we're not going to.
No, I understand that, but there's
So I don't know what
always
you're
a
getting at.
starting point.
Well, I know, but I don't understand what your point is.
I think
I
she
don't
means
know how
an
we-
initial proposal.
An initial proposal.
There was
of-
no initial salary percentage increase proposal. And she's saying that in past, that is what they've gotten, and now there's been none of that.
Right, and you're asking us a lot. Add the extra time in your day, add this, add professional development days, all the half days. And all you said, you'll be compensated.
Yeah, but the point is, the committee is not saying that it won't provide a response to your salary proposal. It's just not happening today.
We
but it will
hear,
happen.
we hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
that the committee will make a counter proposal. However, it is felt as a sign of disrespect, and they feel slighted because, as everybody here knows, today was the last day for proposals. And our ESP feel that the committee should have given some thought into kind of what is a fair salary, a start initial proposal of salary for the ESP, just like you did for the teachers. That's right. That is it in a nutshell.
It's forthcoming.
In support of my colleague, to see your colleagues who are teachers receive an initial proposal of salary increase, and then to not have one yourself, I think we're all educated enough to know that that does not mean it won't come.
Right, so.
But what it does mean is that it didn't come when other salary proposals did come. And so on that level, it does feel unfair and unequal.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to interrupt
No,
you,
go,
but I hope you don't feel insulted, because
I don't feel insulted, I feel slighted. I feel like we weren't important enough for you to join together and get us a
Right.
percentage.
I think we really need to look at the proposal that you made, and I think any proposal that we would make is not that proposal. So we need to look at what that one is and see how could we make that work? How could that actually be adaptable? So I hear what you're saying in that we didn't come to you first with something, but we're going to respond to what you have.
Okay.
and we're really going to seriously look at that, because I think, we all believe that what you're doing is super important work, but.
Forgive me, but I thought perhaps this may be something that you thought maybe we shouldn't consider, but we understand that teachers are salaried and ESPs are based on an hourly rate. So maybe the approach wasn't the exact same because the way that they are compensated is different. And it didn't occur to me that that would then, the way that we kind of addressed that tonight in our presentations would be construed as a slight. And I'm sorry for that. As you know, we meant no slight, but,
Can I just add one more thing? I do, so whether you're going to believe this or not, I can 1,000% tell you that from the school committee perspective, from Bridget and I's standpoint, we have absolutely considered what is a proposal to be able to talk about salary. However, we did not feel, from a strategic standpoint, that it made sense to do that this evening because and I'll only speak for me here, I did not feel it was appropriate to put a value price tag on an ESP's head, so to speak, that puts a value over that of what you're actually doing day to day, given where the grid stands today in the current contract. So from my perspective, I now feel better informed based on the information that you've given us and some of the rationales that you've provided to us. I know that between now and certainly our next meeting, and as I sort of alluded to with my comment about anything tied to money or time away from students, we're going to heavily consider all of that. But I do think it's in everyone's best interest here that we have to understand the totality of all of that now at this point, right? And that's not just for ESPs, and it's not just for teachers. It's every other unit, not only in the district, but also in the town. So I certainly, that was never our intention to slight, insult, offend anybody in this room. And I hope that in the short time that we've been here together, I hope that you see the way that Bridget and I have tried to work in good faith with you and with other folks, not just even in this room, but in other committees that Bridget and I have been a part of. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't want anybody to leave with a
Sour
bad
taste, yeah.
feeling. But obviously, we can't tell you how to feel. So-
It's done. I just,
Okay. No, glad you.
Appreciate you
like I said, I've done this a
Yeah.
long time, and it's never happened.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I was
Fair.
just curious
You got
as
it.
to why.
Okay.
So we just have some comments on your packet. Okay. So kind of reaching the same conclusion you have, time is money. So things that you have mentioned about time, we don't have a comment on right now, but I'm just going to go through the list.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first proposal you had was for Article 5, Section 2, about the 181 to 184 days. So we did give you that today about striking that one sentence, but otherwise we don't have a response for that. The Article 5, Section 3, we're going to hold off on because we think it is also kind of linked to some steps, and obviously it's linked to steps and all these things, so we're going to wait on that. Article 5, Section 6, which I'm calling the Dave Libby proposal, for the 21 to 22 paychecks, we are fine with. That makes total sense to us.
Yeah, Dave, thanks you.
He's like, I'm out of here.
We're good with that. The longevity one, so we gave you kind of a percentage change today, and then we'll hold off on the part at the bottom about June being the count day.
Yeah.
We're going to hold off for personal days and the blackout days because of the same
Yeah.
with the money. Okay. For PD.
Can I just
you're-
clarify that? Sorry, because did we talk about personal days? What did we just TA before when we were going through ours?
We agreed to the language, just the sort of the different way of asking for a personal.
Yeah, with the building principal versus the superintendent and the 3 days, so
But
we're
we had
agreeing
made
to
a
that.
Yeah, but we had
Okay.
made a proposal on personal days that Emily's now
Yeah,
saying
we've
they're
got,
holding
we
on.
both created a
It's-
proposal
I know.
about that,
Yeah.
so now we're kind of in the midst
So you're
of
going to
it.
hold on that? Yeah.
Right, okay. We'll look at yours, yeah.
Understood.
Okay, so then,
The days about PDs, so time is money, so we're going to hold off on that. But also, the ESPs have very serious concerns about the PD offered for ESPs. The teacher PD has greatly improved in the last year and a half, but there is next to nothing in the world of ESP PD, and that has been the case kind of since I've been around, and for a lot of the ESP's background. So we are very concerned where if ESPs like if there was an entertainment of the idea, like what that would look like and what they would be getting. Because again, lots of people here have second jobs. If they make less money coming to a PD than they do at their second job, it doesn't benefit them to agree to go to those. So that's kind of just a thought, more or less, about that.
So are you asking specifically that maybe that the committee could come back with some samples or examples? Or
Right, because we're just curious, like, what that kind of thing would look like to a large degree, because, you know, the money is important, but aside for just a second, if what you're going to do for PD doesn't help you do your job or doesn't improve you, if you can make more money doing outside ABA services or your retail job or something else, like, why go? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 100%.
Everyone wants their PD to be relevant to them. It's just that, you know, and again, the last year and a half, we've had a PD committee. Strides have been made. I think everyone can agree to that. But it hasn't done anything for the ESPs at this point.
Okay.
Is there any, this may be putting people on the spot, is there any ideas that folks have to bring our way about like what topics they would like? Maybe you can answer that next time.
We could compile a list. Yeah. We could try to compile a list.
Nice
Okay.
to hear what you
All right.
have to
Sure.
say on that. Yeah, okay.
And then I think the other things that everything else is kind of along the same, like wait for the money idea. However, we are fine with the housekeeping of neutralizing the pronouns of the contract. We're also amenable to changing anywhere that it says aid to ESP, because I know that there are a few. So we're fine with, I know it wasn't in here, but I noticed that you did it 3 times in the other proposals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
if
last
that's
contract cycle, we meant to catch all those.
Oh, yes, I
missed some
know.
of them.
There's some of them
We
that just,
didn't,
so we're
yeah.
fine with if that has to be in writing, we're okay with that too.
Yes. You got it. Okay.
And then that's our list, I think.
All right. Okay, so,
Oh, we're a little over, shucks.
yeah, okay, all right, so I guess.
All right, any parting comments? Everybody's good?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
And
guys.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And adjourn at 7:50 PM.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.